Hello everyone, welcome to this session on basic Docker commands. Today in this session, we will be going through some of the most asked Docker commands that you can expect, and we will be doing hands-on for each command, right? So guys, this will be the agenda for this session. So let us go ahead and see what all topics we are going to cover. So guys, first we're going to start off with what is Docker, and then I'll show you guys how you can install Docker. Finally, I'll be showing you all the basic commands that are involved in Docker with examples. Okay, so guys, this is the agenda for this session. I hope it's clear to you. Now let's move on and start off with the first topic, which is what is Docker. So guys, Docker is basically a containerization tool. There are a lot of containerization tools out there, but the most popular one is Docker. Now, what is a containerization tool? You can think about any software, which probably can run on Linux or Windows nowadays as well, right? So the problem with those softwares is that those softwares need an environment to run, right? They would need a specific environment to run with specific conditions, and only then it runs perfectly fine. For example, if you are running, let's say, a Java application, it would require a certain version of Java, right? Similarly, if let's say you are running some other application, let's say a PHP application, it will require a certain version of PHP. Now, what happened was when we were dealing with these kind of files earlier, these files used to run on certain systems and could not run on certain systems because of this problem of having differences in environments. Like for example, if there is a PHP file that we are running, uh, some programs would run on PHP 5, right, and on certainly one system, and then they will not run on those systems when where probably PHP 7 or some newer version of PHP was running, right? So to solve this problem, we came up with Docker. Now, Docker in itself is an environment, which is basically a container which contains all the softwares required to run a program, right? And this container can run on any system. So this will be more clear as we move along. So this is in crux what Docker is. Now let's move on and talk about the container lifecycle of Docker. Let's understand how Docker basically works, right? So we have a Docker engine. So this is what you basically install on your system, right? And when you're using the Docker engine, basically you make use of images, right? And these images can be pushed and pulled from a cloud program, which is basically called Docker Hub, right? So Docker Hub is a place where all the Docker images are present, official Docker images are present, right? And these Docker images can be pushed and pulled on your system by installing the Docker engine on itself, right? So what you do is you install the Docker engine, and then when you install the Docker engine, you can push and pull the images from the cloud, which is basically Docker Hub. Now, once that is done, you get the Docker images. Now, these Docker images can do three operations, right? They can either be run. Once they are running, you can either stop them or you can delete them, right? So this is the whole life cycle of Docker. There's not much that you have to learn about it, right? If you understand this diagram well, you will be able to understand what I'm going to teach you further. So to summarize, what is the Docker life cycle? So you have a cloud which is defined by the Docker company, where you have all the official Docker images, right? Now all you need to do is you need to install the Docker engine on your system, and once you install the Docker engine, you can pull the images from the cloud, that is Docker Hub. And once these images are pulled, using these images, you can either run a container, stop a container, or delete a container. Now to connect to what I explained you earlier, Docker is used to run containerized environments, right? So these environments are nothing but these images. So for example, if you download a PHP 5 container, you can run this PHP 5 container, and then it will basically all right. So I think there is some problem with the screen. Let me just correct it quickly. All right, I think it should be fixed now. So as I was saying that I was explaining this life cycle that you have a Docker hub. This Docker hub is basically the cloud-centric place where you have all the images, and these images can be pushed and pulled from the Docker engine, right? And this Docker engine you have to install on your system. And once it is installed, what you do is basically you get a set of Docker images which you can run, stop, or delete, right? So this is how it works. So now moving on, now let's go ahead and start with uh, the components of Docker ecosystem. So I'll just give you a brief about what these components are. So what you basically have is the Docker hub. You have Docker engine, you have Docker images, the Docker containers, Docker volumes, and Docker files. Now Docker volumes and Docker files are basically advanced concepts that we will be covering up in the couple of webinars that we'll have ahead. What I told you about today, or what we will understand today, is Docker hub, Docker engine, Docker images, and containers. So Docker hub, like I told you, it's basically a cloud where all the containers are basically, or where all the images are basically present, right? Next thing that you have is a Docker engine, right? And Docker engine is basically a place where the software that you install on your system is Docker engine, and this Docker engine can interact with the Docker hub, right? After that, you have once you download the images from Docker hub, they are basically called Docker images, right? And these Docker images, you can do the three operations, that is run, stop, and delete them. And when you run them, stop them, or delete them, then they basically automatically convert to a container. All right. All right, guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and now we are going to install Docker. So now let's see how you can install Docker on your system. So what I'll do is I'll quickly switch my screen. And for this session, we will be using a Linux operating system. Okay. And since we're going to use a Linux operating system, I would need it. So what I'll do is I will basically go ahead and sign into my AWS Management Console. Right. So once I'm signed in, I will basically go ahead and I will launch a server. So let me do that quickly. All right. So now it's asking me the username and password. Let me give that very quickly. Right. I'll just open. So on AWS, if you have to launch a server, the service that you're going to use is EC2. And here we are going to launch a server. Right. So how can you launch a server? Just click on launch instances and choose the operating system that you want to launch. We'll be launching an Ubuntu operating system. Select the configuration that you want. We are going to choose T2.micro because it falls under the free tier. And rest everything we are going to leave at default. Only the firewall is going to be the default firewall. This is basically the security group. Now, guys, you can skip this step of basically having an AWS server, right? You can have an Ubuntu operating system, or if you have Windows, you can also work on Windows. It's up to you. I will tell you the installation for all. Right. So I'm just launching this server so that I can work on the Linux system, right? On my system, basically, I already have Docker installed, and what I want to show you guys is how to install Docker, right? So in that case, I will need this system. So this is a Linux system, but when you want to install Docker, guys, you can actually just install it on any operating system. First, let me cover how you can install Docker on Windows. Okay, so first of all, this is the system requirement that you will basically need Windows 10 Pro, or you will need Windows 10 Home in order to install Docker. Right, you will need a 64-bit processor and at least 4 GB of RAM. And in the BIOS, you will have to enable virtualization in case you want to use Docker on Windows. Right. After that, what you'll have to do is you will have to download the installer. Right, and if you want to download the installer, you can basically see this section of the page, and you can just download the components. And once you download the components, you can just follow this guide, and through this guide you will be able to install Docker Desktop. Now once Docker Desktop is installed, just run it, and you will see that on the right side taskbar you will find this icon, which is basically for Docker. Right, this means Docker is running. And once Docker is running, all you have to do is you can just open your terminal, and then you can type in the commands that I'm going to teach you today. That's about it. That's how you install Docker on Windows. Now, Docker on Windows, it's a little tedious process, but when you talk about Docker on Linux, it's pretty easy. So let me show you how you can do that. So you just have to first open your Linux terminal. So let me open my Linux terminal. So I'm just connecting to my Linux machine. Give me 1 second. All right, so I'm connected. So in order to install Docker, guys, all you have to do is you first have to update the machine. So update the machine like this. So once the machine is updated, now since this is a new machine, I have to update it. Could be that you have an existing machine. So in that case, the update time will not take this much time. It'll take around 6 to 5 seconds more. And after that, there is just one command to install Docker in Ubuntu. Once you have updated that machine, updation is very important. Otherwise, that command will not work. Okay. Now, once this is done, just type in sudo apt get install docker.io. So just by using this command, you will now be able to install Docker on your Ubuntu system. All right, it takes about a minute or so to install Docker. And once it's ready, we can now go ahead and use our Docker command. So as you can see, Docker has been successfully installed. And now you can go ahead and use the Docker command. So if you just type in a single command to check if Docker is working or not, yes, it's working perfectly fine. So coming back to our slide, we have successfully installed Docker. Now let's move ahead and understand some common Docker commands, right? So what are some common Docker commands that you need to know? Let's go ahead and shed a light on that. All right. So the first command that you should know in Docker is how to find out the version for the Docker software which is running. All right. So just open up the terminal, type in docker -- version, and you can see this is Docker which is running on the system. This is the first command that you need to know, docker -- version, right? So with this, you can get to know that Docker 19 is installed on my system, and this is the build number for the installation that I've done, right? Okay, great. So Docker -- version helps you to get the version of the Docker that you're using. After that, how to pull an image. So Docker pull, and then you'll have to specify the image name, right? And this image will then be downloaded from the Docker Hub which is basically a repository which is available predefined. So coming back to the architecture, you can have a look over here that this is Docker Hub, and what we have done is we have installed Docker Engine. So now what we are going to do is we are going to pull an container image from Docker Hub in order to work. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So coming back to Docker pull and my terminal. So now what I'm going to do is, let's say we want to go ahead and pull a Docker image and let it be of Ubuntu itself. So I can just, and it can be any container image, but what we know is that let's go ahead and pull a container for the Ubuntu operating system. So Docker pull Ubuntu. And now what's going to happen is it's going to search for this container on the cloud, and then it's going to download for us. And it will take minutes, guys, to download it, since on this internet, on this instance, the internet is fast. That's why I download it in seconds. Okay. So now that the image is downloaded, remember from the architecture, we can do 3 operations on it: run, stop, and delete. Okay. So coming back to my slides, if I want to look what images I have on my system, ideally on this system, I should have the image that I downloaded, which is Ubuntu. So the command to see the images is Docker images. So if I type in Docker images, you can see that Ubuntu image has been downloaded. It's the latest. This image was created on Docker Hub 4 days ago, right? And this is the image ID. And this is the size of the image. It's around 73 MB. Now, this is the awesome thing over here, guys. Imagine the Ubuntu container is just 73 MB, right? So what that means is that whatever, if you want to use this container on any system, you just have to type in Docker pull Ubuntu. And then inside that container, or the size of that container is always going to be 73 MB, right? Which is great. Now, when you talk about the Ubuntu operating system in itself, if you download the installer, it's going to be around 1.5 to 2 GB, right? But the special thing about Docker is it basically cuts down on all the extra software which is required. For example, in this case, in a container, there is no BIOS or kernel present, right? Because it basically utilizes the underlying kernel of the host operating system. So if you're installing it on Windows, it will basically use the underlying BIOS. In my case, since it's Linux, it's basically making use of the underlying kernel, right? And because of all the extra software which is removed, the minimalistic environment of Ubuntu is around 73 MB. Great. So now what we're going to do is, since we know what images we have and we have already downloaded the image that we require for our further hands-on, let's move on and understand our next command. So like I said, once you have the image, you can do 3 operations on it. You can run it, you can stop it, and you can delete it. So let's first understand, if I have to run this Docker image, right, how can I do that? So the command is docker run. Okay, this is the command. And apart from this, what you have to enter are some flags in order for your container to be up and running, right? So first what we'll enter is docker run -it. This basically means that whatever output I'm going to get from the container is going to be there on the terminal. -it means interactive. That means the output should be there on the terminal. Next thing that I want it to be running in the background. I don't want it to close once we are done, working on it. I just want it to keep on running in case there is an application which is running on it, right? So what I can do is I can type in -d, which basically means demonize this container, right? And then I have to type in the image name, which is Ubuntu. And now what is going to happen? If I hit enter, this container is now running in the background, and this is the container ID for it. Okay. So now how can we go ahead and check how many containers are running on your system, the command for that is docker ps. So if I come back to my terminal and if I type in docker ps, you can see that your Ubuntu container is running. This is the ID for your container, and it was created 23 seconds ago. Great. So now you have a container running, and sometimes what happens is, like I said, that once you have an image, you can do three things with it. You can run it, stop it, or delete it. So you can run some images, you can stop some images, right? So what happens if your image is stopped? In that case, how you can go ahead and see it? So for that, the command is docker ps-a. So what the -a flag means over here is display all the containers irrespective of whether the fact it is running or not. Okay, so when you're using the docker ps command, it basically shows you all the containers which are in the running state. Now what we want is all the containers which are either running or stopped on the system. So for that, the command is docker ps-a. So since in my case I only have one container and it is running, it is showing me only one container. But in case, let's go ahead and stop this container. So if I stop this container, I have to use the command stop. Copied it twice. Yes. So the container is now stopped. So if I do a docker ps, what do you think will be the output? Docker ps basically shows you all the running containers. So now it should not show me any container on the system, right? And as you can see, this is an empty output. There are no containers running now. Correct? Now, how can I see the container which are stopped? The command is docker ps-a, and now I can see all the containers which are stopped or start. Irrespective what is their state, I will see their containers. Right? Now, how can you start this container again? Just select the docker ID, container ID, type in docker start, paste it, and now again this container has started running, right? And I can just type in ps, and you can see I again have this container listed, and it was basically, it has been up since 6 seconds and it was created 2 minutes ago, right? All right, great. Coming back to our slides. So we now know docker ps, we now know docker ps-a. Now let's see if I want to go inside a container. So I have a container which is running, right? But I have to basically do something with this container in order to make it useful, right? I have to probably install something on this container, right? I have to probably put some files on this container so that it becomes more meaningful to me. So in order to go inside a container, what you have to do is the command is docker exec. Okay. So as you can see over here, it is basically used for logging into or accessing the container. For that, what we have to use is the exec command. All right. Now, how can you use the exec command? Coming back to the terminal, docker exec -it. So it again over here because you want to see it in the terminal, right? And then what you have to type in is the container ID, like this. And next step, what we will be doing is we basically have to give the terminal name. So or the terminal that we're using. In my case, I'm using the bash terminal. I have to give that, and then I have to hit enter. Okay. Now with this, what happens is I go inside the container. So I'm in the root user of this particular container. Great. Now what I can do is I can make use of this container in the way I want. So let's say I want to go ahead and I want to install something on this container, right? So one quick thing that I can show you right now is that since there is nothing installed on this system or this container as of now, if I go to the IP address of this machine and if I paste it on the browser, I cannot see anything, right? Now what I'm going to do is inside this container, I'm going to install a web server and let's see how that goes. So let me update the machine. So this is how we go ahead and update it. So the container is now updated. And now I'm going to install a software called Apache 2 on it. Okay, so now I'll have to select the region. Let me do that. And then I'll have to select the time zone. So let's select the time zone that we are in. Or let's go ahead and select any time zone. It doesn't matter. So let me select one. So now my software is getting installed. All right. So Apache 2 is now installed, and I can check the status of this software by typing in service Apache 2 status. And right now it says it's not running. And we can run it by just typing in service Apache 2 start. Okay, but before we can reach that step, there are a couple more things that we have to learn. So let us go ahead and understand the further commands as well. So now I already told you how to stop a Docker container. The command is docker stop. Let's say a container gets hung because of some reason. So in that case, what you can also do is you can kill the container. So what I'm going to do is, in this case, let me come back to my terminal. Let me exit the container first. So how can you exit it? A container, just type in exit, and your container will be exited. You can see still the Docker container is running, even if you exited it, because it is running in the demonized mode. You typed in -d while you were running it. Now, in case I want to kill this container, the command is docker kill the container ID. And now this container has been killed. So if I type in docker ps, you can see there's no container running. However, if I type in docker ps-a, you can see that this container is there, but it's in the exited state. Now, when you basically you want to use a software from inside a container, you will have to expose it to your host operating system. For example, if I wanted to use the Apache 2 software, which I installed inside the container, the Apache 2 software basically works on port 80. So I will have to expose the port 80 of the container to the host operating system. Now, how can I do that? So again, I will have to come back to the run command, docker run, and I'm running a new container now. I'm not running that old container because this command has to be specified along with the run, right? So docker run -it, this I've already told you. Now there is a new flag that you will be learning, which is -p. -p basically means the port. So I want to expose port 80 of the container to the port 80 of the host operating system. Okay, this is what we specify using the -p flag. Then you want to demonize the container as well, and then I want to run the Ubuntu image. This is the command. If I run it, the container has been started, right? So if I do a docker ps, you can see a container is running, and there is a new entry that you will see, which says the port 80 of the container is basically forwarded to port 80 of the host operating system, which is great. So now if I want to go inside the container, again, I'll just select the Docker container ID. I'll type in docker exec -it, the container ID, and then bash. I'm inside the container now. Again, let's go ahead and install the Apache 2 software. So I'll just update the container first. Container is updated, and now I will install the Apache 2 software. Again, it will ask us, the region that we are in. So we'll type in the continent first, and then we'll have to specify the city that we are in. So now let's go ahead and select any city, and then let's go ahead and complete the installation. So once the software is installed, you can check the status of this software by typing in service, the software name, and status. So right now it is not running. Let's make it running. So service Apache 2 start. Right. So the server has now started, and you can check the status by service Apache 2 status. You can see Apache is running, and now you can see on this IP address, you can see a Apache 2 page. Great. Now let me show you one awesome thing. So if you exit this container, still this is going to work. You can see this page. Now what I want to do is I want you guys to also practice. So just copy this IP address. The address is 13.232.99.254, right? So let me also type it out in the chat so that you guys can just copy and paste it in your browser, and you will be able to see this Apache 2 page. Okay, so just go to this IP address, and you should see this page on your browser right now. Okay, and also guys, this is only going to be for the live audience. So people who will be watching this later as a recording, this will not be visible to you. So guys, just try it out and let me know if you are able to see a page like this. Are you able to see an Apache 2 page? Just tell me yes in the chat, and then I will know. Are you all able to see this page? And if you are, that means our container is running great. It's running perfectly fine. Are we all able to see it? Great. Now coming back to my terminal, what I'll have to do is I will go ahead and I can basically stop this container. And the moment I stop it, what you will notice is that this web page is also going to be not visible. Okay, so how can we do that? Just type in docker ps to see which containers are running. This is the container which is running right now. I want to go ahead and I want to stop it. Okay, container is stopped, and if I refresh it now, you can see that this page is no longer visible. Okay, why is it not visible? Because this page was hosted inside the container, and now I have stopped the container. That is why it is not visible. Okay, so let me also go ahead and start this container again. So if I start this container again, I'll have to start the service separately, and after that you will be again able to see the page. So I'll just type in service Apache 2 start, and now the service has started. If I refresh, you can see this Apache 2 page is again visible. So guys, this is how you go ahead and you can basically start or stop a container, or you can basically go ahead and install a software on your machine as well. All right, now let's go ahead and look at other commands. So now let's go and understand, if basically I have stopped a container, how can I go ahead and delete it, right? So let's say, coming back to my terminal, I basically have, let me exit the container. So I should have one stopped container over here, which is this. This container is exited, right? So how can I go ahead and remove this container? So what I'll have to do is type in a command called docker rm, which basically means remove. Type in the ID of the container and hit enter. And with this container has now been deleted. Okay. So if I type in docker rm, docker ps -a, you can see that that stopped container is no longer visible. Why? Because we have removed it using the docker rm command. Great. Moving forward, if I want to remove an image, how I can do that? So you can delete an image as well. And for deleting an image, the only difference in the command will be docker rmi you have to type. And once you type in docker rmi, it will mean remove an image, and then you have to type in the image name. So in our example, for I say, if I want to see all images on my system, I have to type in docker images. So if I have to remove this Ubuntu image, I'll have to type in docker rmi and then this image ID like this. One second. This image ID I'll have to copy and I'll have to type in. And when I hit enter, this Ubuntu image will be deleted. Okay. So this is how you can delete an image as well. I'm not going to try it out because right now I have a container which is running. So let's leave it as it is. Okay. So this was docker rmi command was. Now let's talk about how you can, we have all discussed about how you can pull image from a Docker Hub, but how can you push an image to a Docker Hub account? Let's try and discuss that. So first of all, you will need a Docker Hub account, right? So how can you have a Docker Hub account? You will have to go to a website called hub.docker.com. This is basically going to be a cloud for Docker where all the images are present. Now, obviously this has the official images, but you can have your own custom images as well that you can upload to basically a Docker Hub account. Now, how can you do that? Let's go ahead and understand. So first you'll have to sign up. So just sign up on this page. It's free, right? And you'll have to specify a unique Docker ID, an email, a password, verify that you're not a robot, and click on sign up. And with this, your account will be created. Now, once your account is created, you can sign in like this. First, you'll have to, so I have a Docker ID called this, and I can log in using the password. Just give me a moment. Okay. So this is my account, guys. So I have all these custom images that I have uploaded, right? And now if I want, I can go ahead and upload a, I can upload a container over here in this Docker Hub account. Now, how can I do that? So first I'll have to create a custom container. So for that, I'll have to go to my Now, how can you push images to this Docker Hub account? First, you'll have to create a custom container. So in order to create a custom container, let's go ahead and understand the commands. So this is how you go ahead and sign up on Docker Hub. After that, let's understand how you can create a custom container. So first, like you would have seen, I have made some changes to the Ubuntu container. I went ahead and installed the Apache 2 software, right? And now let's go ahead and understand if I want to make use of this container on some other system, how can I do that? So first I will have to save the changes to this container. How can I save the changes to this container? By committing, the keyword is committing the changes to it. So if you have an Ubuntu container, if you install the Apache server on it, the container is now an Ubuntu container with Apache installed, and it becomes a custom container of yours. Okay. Now, how can we go ahead and commit changes to a container? The command would be this. The command is docker commit. So you'll have to type in docker commit the container ID, and then once you save the changes to a container, it basically gets converted to an image, right? So you will have to specify the new image name, right? Now the catch over here is whatever Docker Hub. So if you have to basically upload it to Docker Hub, the nomenclature of your image should be something like this. So you will have to name your image in this chronology. So first you will have to type in the username of your Docker Hub account / whatever image name that you want to give it. Okay. So to convert it into what I'm saying is, so first let's go ahead and say this is the container that I want to save. So docker commit. This name so that I don't get confused, right? Hit enter, and with this, your container will now be saved. Okay, so you will get an acknowledgement using this SHA number, right? And if I type in Docker images now, you can see there is a new image which is HSHAR/Apache 2810. This is a new image which got created when you type in Docker images. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to basically push this image onto Docker Hub. So how can I do that? So for pushing the container on Docker Hub, the command is first docker login, which we have already done. Then the command docker push, and then the container name or the image name. Okay. So coming back, my image name is this HSHAR/Apache 2810. Now the command is docker push and then this image name, right? Just specify that. And if you have already logged in with Docker, this will now start pushing to your Docker Hub account. Right? So now your image is being pushed. And once the image is pushed, you will return back to the normal terminal. As you can see, it is done, right? And now if I go back, this was my Docker Hub account. If I refresh, you will be able to see that the image that I uploaded will be visible over here. So Apache 2810 was updated a few seconds ago, and this is now present on the Docker Hub account. Now, what all I have to do is on some other system, or let's say if you guys want to use this image, all you have to do is type in docker pull. Now, if you want to pull image from the Docker Hub, type in HSHAR/Apache 2810. Right? This is my image name. Anybody can download it, and all you have to do is type in this image name, docker pull, and then the image name, and then your container will be downloaded. So if you guys want to download this same container, just type in this command, and you will be able to download this particular container. Okay, so this is how you guys do it. So docker pull the container name, and then the image will be downloaded. Great. Coming back to our slides. So we now know how to push a container to Docker Hub. Moving forward, now we also verified the push on Docker Hub by visiting the Docker Hub account and seeing that we have an image which has been pushed over there. So with this, guys, we come to an end of this session. So these were some basic commands in Docker that you need to understand to get started with Docker and perform some normal operations. So to summarize, we went through the common Docker commands. We saw how to launch a container, how to install software on it, save that as an image, upload that image to cloud, and then I told you guys the mechanism of downloading that image onto any computer possible. Right. So this was about this session. We will be coming up with more Docker sessions in the future. So if you want to, you can subscribe to the channel and also click on that bell icon to never miss out on any updates from us. And whenever the next Docker video is coming, you will be notified. Right. So if you guys learned something new in this session, please hit that like button. That basically motivates us. Right. And for that, we also, come up with more such awesome videos for you. So with that, guys, I'd like to take a leave from you all. I thank you all for joining in. Have a great day ahead and goodbye.